Tech giants like Apple, Google, and Facebook might seem unstoppable, but the European Union is shaking things up. The EU is introducing new regulations that are putting these big tech players on edge. But what exactly is the EU doing to make these companies so anxious? The EU's regulatory landscape for tech companies is designed to ensure fair competition, data privacy, and consumer protection. Two key regulations are leading the charge: the Digital Markets Act, or DMA, and the Digital Services Act, or DSA. The DMA zeroes in on the large online platforms known as gatekeepers, enforcing rules to ensure fair play. This includes preventing these platforms from giving their own services an unfair advantage and requiring them to share data with smaller competitors to foster a more competitive environment. Meanwhile, the DSA tackles the responsibilities of online platforms in removing illegal content, ensuring advertising transparency, and protecting user rights. It requires platforms to work with trusted flaggers to identify and eliminate illegal content, trace business users, and conduct independent audits of their risk management systems. The General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, which came into effect in May 2018, sets the bar high for data protection. This law unifies data privacy rules across Europe and gives individuals greater control over their personal data. It's strictly enforced, with regulators imposing hefty fines on companies that don't comply. For instance, in January 2024, a major social media platform was hit with a $390 million fine for violations related to targeted advertising practices. One of the GDPR's standout features is the right to erasure, allowing users to delete their data from the internet, giving them more control over their digital footprints. The EU's antitrust and competitive regulations, based on Articles 101 and 102 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, are designed to prevent anti-competitive agreements and the abuse of dominant market positions. The Directorate General for Competition enforces these regulations to maintain fair competition. The EU also has a robust framework for scrutinizing mergers to prevent monopolies and protect consumer interests. A notable example is the EU blocking the merger between Siemens and Alstom, which aimed to create a European rail giant but was deemed likely to reduce competition and hike prices for consumers. Countries like Germany have introduced national market investigation tools. The German Federal Cartel Office can now impose remedies to address market failures, even without direct violations of competition laws. This proactive approach might inspire similar measures across the EU member states, potentially leading to a more unified regulatory framework. Taxation of tech companies has been a hot topic, particularly concerning digital services and corporate taxes. The EU aims to ensure that tech giants pay their fair share of taxes based on the revenue they generate from users in the region. In 2018, the European Commission proposed a digital services tax, or DST, as a temporary measure until a comprehensive international tax solution could be established. The DST targets large digital companies, taxing them based on revenues from digital advertising, online marketplaces, and the sale of user data within the EU. It suggests a 3% tax on companies with global revenues exceeding $750 million and EU revenues over $50 million. With these sweeping changes, the EU is not just regulating but reshaping the digital landscape, pushing tech giants to adapt or face the consequences. The EU's stringent regulations present formidable legal and operational challenges for major tech companies. Let's dive into a few noteworthy examples. The EU's USB-C mandate requires all mobile devices, including Apple iPhones, to adopt USB-C charging ports by the end of 2024. This regulation aims to reduce electronic waste and simplify the charging process for consumers by enabling a single type of charger for multiple devices. Historically, Apple has used its proprietary Lightning port for iPhones and other devices, despite the industry's broader shift towards USB-C. The new EU law mandating standardized charging significantly impacts Apple, compelling the company to transition its products, including future iPhone models, to comply with this regulation. In response, Apple has already changed all of their current devices to use USB-C versions instead of Lightning. The transition began with the iPhone 15, which debuted in 2023, followed by other products such as AirPods and iPads. The shift marks a significant departure from Apple's long-standing use of the Lightning port. This regulation is part of a broader EU effort to enforce uniformity and sustainability in tech products, including expectations for fast-charging standards. Another tech giant facing EU challenges is Google, which has been under significant antitrust scrutiny from the European Union over the past decade, resulting in multiple substantial fines. In 2017, the EU fined Google $2.42 billion for favoring its own comparison shopping service over competitors in search results. This was the first major antitrust penalty for Google by the EU and marked a significant push to regulate the tech giant's market dominance. In 2018, Google was fined $4.34 billion for imposing illegal restrictions on Android device manufacturers and mobile network operators to cement its search engine's dominance. The EU found that Google required manufacturers to pre-install the Google Search app and Chrome browser as a condition for licensing the Google Play Store, which was seen as an abuse of its dominant position in the mobile market. In 2019, the EU fined Google $1.49 billion for abusing its market dominance in online advertising by imposing restrictive clauses in contracts with third-party websites, preventing rivals from placing their search ads on these websites. This behavior stifled competition and reinforced Google's monopoly in the market. These fines reflect the EU's aggressive stance on curbing the market power of major tech companies and ensuring fair competition. The cumulative impact has led Google to make several changes in its business practices, including offering Android users more choices for search engines and browsers, and altering how it licenses its services to manufacturers. Facebook, now Meta, has faced significant challenges in complying with the GDPR, particularly regarding data transfers and user consent for data processing. One of the most notable issues was the invalidation of the EU-US Privacy Shield by the Court of Justice of the European Union in 2020, disrupting the legal framework for transatlantic data transfers. Following this, Meta relied on standard contractual clauses for data transfers, but the Irish Data Protection Commission ruled that these were insufficient for ensuring GDPR compliance. Meta's handling of the user consent for data processing has also been contentious. The GDPR requires explicit consent for processing personal data for behavioral advertising, which Meta's business model heavily relies on. Meta proposed a pay or protect model, where users could either consent to data processing or opt out for an ad-free experience by paying a fee. Meta has faced substantial fines under GDPR for various breaches. For instance, the company was fined $1.2 billion in 2023 for transferring EU user data to the US without adequate protection, a decision Meta is currently appealing. These ongoing legal battles and the evolving regulatory landscape highlight the complexities and challenges major tech companies face in aligning their operations with stringent European data protection laws. The outcomes of these cases will likely set important precedents for data privacy and corporate compliance in the digital age. The EU's regulation poses significant challenges for tech companies, requiring them to adapt their business practices to comply. As the EU refines its approach, tech firms must navigate their businesses carefully to maintain their presence and competitiveness in the European market. Which tech giant do you think might be the next to face antitrust charges, and for what? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe for more insights.